Welcome to the Spark Joy podcast. And today I am actually talking about using your voice or me using my voice. And so I'm sitting here with the microphone here in front of me. And I really just wanted to share a story about how I ended up on this path because, being in front of a camera like this and using my voice and communicating on social media and, creating content online and, becoming a transformational coach was so far from my role in property and as a real estate agent, which is what I did for a long time, which was for a brand where this is actually I've gone off the beaten track, so to speak, off the beaten path, and using all of what life's trained me in best. Since I was at high school, I was into drama and did public speaking and represented my high school, regular high school, and was a debating champ. And so a lot of my early years was actually communicating and, uh, I also did, training in film and television when I lived in Auckland, before I was even 13, because I wanted to be, to communicate and use my voice. And so a lot of that had become quite dormant, and I wasn't actually doing that anymore. I wasn't using my voice at all. And that's, so it's really interesting. I was actually pushed forward. I really want to say I was pushed forward into this, not by any man or person telling me, hey, you should go into this industry, or this could be a job, or this could be something that you could use, all everything that life's trained me in, all my skills and talents and the abilities I already had to communicate and be able to bring transformation to other people's lives. It wasn't actually, this was directed really from God, which is kind of quite funny. So during COVID, I was on like a Zoom call actually with some friends who, were kind of spiritual and believers. And I had this friend, Maggie, and she was kind of praying for me, and she said, do you have a microphone? And it was really strange because sitting in front of me on the desk where I was sitting was my daughter's microphone. It was like a toy microphone. And she said, all right, well, you're to pick that up. And I kind of held into the Zoom screen, and I said, here is the microphone, my daughter's microphone. And she said, all right, I want you to hold it and I want you to speak into it. And I actually felt like I was about to cry, or, I got really emotional and choked up, which is ridiculous because I was holding a children's microphone. But it was connected in because there was something really deep inside of me that was unrealized and unfulfilled, which was to communicate and to speak. And, there was something in me that knew that a microphone would be very, very natural for me to be doing that. But, I hadn't followed that path, and that wasn't something that, was available to me in terms of the type of work that I did and how I used my skills back pre-COVID. So, yes, I had the microphone, and my friend Maggie, she had spent a lot of time overseas with YWAM, and so she was releasing people into their voices and into their identities when she was a leader at Youth with a Mission. And so she was kind of using the same methodology with me on this Zoom call during COVID. And she said, all right, I'm going to hold the microphone and I want you to say your name. And so I said, my name is, let me just think about how I did it. But, I said, hello, my name is Bonnie, Carrie, Clarissa. And then I actually said my maiden name, which is ridiculous, Calderwood. And then I just started praying and actually like prophesying. That's where like the Spirit of God would, come on me as I was holding this microphone. And I started to shake really under like the presence of God, holding the microphone. And I said, angels are waiting to hear my voice in cities around the world. And then as I said it, it intensified, and it was just this powerful moment that angels were waiting to be released and to hear the sound of my voice, that there was a command that was to come from my voice, like a prayer over certain cities and geographic areas, around the world in these cities, and the angels just waiting to hear my voice. So, and that's what happened when I picked up that microphone. So that was really quite a huge shock and surprise to me, and just a really powerful moment. One of the other really interesting things that is foundational to the path that I find myself on now, that gives me this authority and this invitation that I want to invite other people to come and step into, what I've experienced over the last, I would say 5 to 7 years of, walking in something that's outside of, off the beaten path, something that's outside of the norm, which is like trusting in God and listening for his guidance, and especially surrendering my career, how money comes to me, all of those things, and actually trusting him that he was bringing me into something that would be way more aligned and fulfilling and bring, passion and kind of excitement and get me out of bed in the morning to do something that was, what I was always born to do, which is to, be a creative and to be a visionary and to release other people as well, to be that light where I could be, a lamp, so to speak, to bring other people into their destiny and into their purpose. And that's really something that is burning on my heart to do. So one of the topics that, I've made this podcast about is that the gold that is in your future. And, that takes a certain amount of faith to continue doing what you've always done. So, so I've been there myself, doing a job that you hate, or doing something kind of routine, a habitual lifestyle, something that goes on in your life and it's actually not that fulfilling, but you have more faith to believe that for you to stay the same and keep doing what you've always done, that you have faith to stay there. But you don't have faith to move out beyond that and take a risk and try something that you've never done before, that's like brand new. And so that's a shift that I help bring, the umbrella I've kind of talked about, for people to step into it and actually have faith to believe that they could do something that they've never done before, skilled at, life's already trained them in it, but it's going to be repackaged and that they would be sent back out into the marketplace, into the workplace in like a brand new way that they could never imagine, that they would have an identity, so to speak. And so this is part of the program, that I'm inviting people into, with the Spark Joy School that's getting released, really to kind of find out, like, what has life trained me in to be, skilled at, like, and to be honest, everything, like nothing is wasted, all the pain, discouragement or successes, accolades, different things that you've done, we can put it all together, and then usually there'll be one thing that will just really stand out, and that your spirit and your soul, it's going to beacon to you, and it will be like a light. You'll be like, I need to do that thing. And sometimes you just need one person, a bit like how my friend Maggie, got me to hold that microphone. She said, I need to hold this microphone, Bonnie, and say your name. And then once I said my name, the rest came, and it's been an unfolding that actually I am a communicator, and and I'm to speak. So the fantastic thing that I love about having a podcast is, I've had people say to me before, I went and worked for a company, and I was hired because the person who was an internal recruitment, and she had said they wanted a change maker to come and bring change within the team. So this was kind of the premise why I went into this role, and it was really clear. And soon as I got into that role, I was then told by my head manager that actually they didn't want a change maker at all, and that they were not interested in any of my ideas, and they didn't want to know them. And, so I've had, during my life, I've had a lot of people who have literally just said, like, shut up, we don't want to hear what you have to say, or we don't want to hear your voice. And it's really almost yeah, it's kind of like it's going in complete opposite of actually that. No, I am got a lot to offer and I've got a lot to say. I said to someone the other day, they said, "Can you please be quiet?" Weird because I'm so attuned to that now that it is so wrong. But no, I'm not going to be quiet, and that I'm going to speak up. And this podcast, I actually, because I know I'm starting a podcast, and I said, "Wow, I'm getting a podcast, and no one will be able to turn me off now. Or if you don't want to hear my voice, you have to unsubscribe or something, because I'm just getting started." So I really just wanted to ask a few questions, which I'd love you to have a think about. And so I'm going to read them off my phone just so I've got my notes here. So what are you called to do that you're scared to try? Is there something that you've never done before, but you know that you should do it? And the other thing is, what happened to you? So I've shared a little bit today about what happened to me and my voice being shut down, so to speak, and allowing other people, to kind of silence me and not bring forth my ideas or speak up. And so, yeah, I don't know what your story is or, what's happened to you, but is there something that you've, held back on or that you've put down because you felt like that it hasn't been appreciated, or, that you don't know how to overcome some of those negative voices which have come against maybe something? It's usually something that you're really good at, actually. And have you laid something down that you could be really good at? You just have to think about that. Have you got a divine calling to bring forth that would make a huge difference in other people's lives? And not even just locally. Like, I think that's the kind of the anointing and what I'm really being equipped to do, which is to release people more globally. And so in terms of my own career, I lived in one geographical area for over 20 years, most of my adult life. And so part of that dismantling and dissolving of my whole past life, whole adult life, living in the same geographic area, being in, relationship, my marriage, everything that has fallen away is that it's actually made way for me to be able to step and have vision and be able to really see that what I'm to build in the next season is actually more global. It's more international. Not, that I really just want to, I see it like I'm flying a flag and, the people that need to find me, through this podcast, we're going to meet and going to connect. Yeah, I think that's true. I know that some of the most pivotal, like I've had, who I would call my spiritual father, he's from America and was very influential on me coming into a lot of like spiritual revelation, my Christianity. That happened in 2015 because I just saw this YouTube video of him speaking. And I remember the first time I was like, "Oh, who is this speaking? What are they talking about?" And I was almost like a bit skeptical the first time I heard him speak. But then I ended up, started like binging all his content, and then I got into his schools and his community, and it was a really transformative time of my life. And so I think in terms of communicating like this and connecting in with, that you find your tribe, that you find your people. My pastor friend, Scott Marion, he always says that when you find your people, you'll find your prosperity. That there's this prospering when you are connected in with the right people that you're meant to do life with. And that's in alignment. And it's the same thing in business when you're, moving forward and building out something new. And quite often you might find that you're not doing it with, old friends or old people, but that you've been brought into, a new tribe of people. One of my little sayings, I have these affirmations I wrote in my phone, and one of them was, I don't know where I heard this from, but it was, in the next 12 months, I'm going to fall in with a company of prophets. Because I thought, I don't know where I heard it from, but I was like, that's cool. So there's something about, finding the tribe and all the people And sometimes the people could be like one person or two people or five. I actually think, quite often we have these ideas of unity, unless you're like a real extrovert. Maybe you've got 50 friends and like, that's great, but you'd probably be better to go and, create a business with 50 people you're serving. Friends can take up a lot of time. Some people spend their whole time just with their friends and the dramas that are happening. I've got a friend like that. So yeah, I think you only really need 1 to 5 people, and I can be one in your 1 to 5. I know that I've found a lot of encouragement and hope at like some of the most darkest and kind of dire times in my life through platforms like this and through voices, people like Terry Seville, and like just I love them are actually American. I don't know what that is, but they've been a beacon. And so if I can, pass the baton on, if I can be a beacon of light and hope, and perhaps just open up, your understanding of, what's possible. I've got some friends who have, created Christian podcasts or kingdom podcasts, and I'm definitely a Christian, a believer. I've had a relationship with Jesus since I was 7 years old. And, I've known the Holy Spirit, and I'm not a religious Christian, but I'm somebody who's actually had, a relationship with God since I was a little girl. Unfortunately, I really suck at religion or being religious. It's more, it's kind of like people like, but how do you know if God's real? Or how do you know Jesus is real? And I'm like, because I've hung out with Jesus since my whole life. It's kind of like me asking, think of like, I don't know, your cousin or something. And I said, how do you know if your cousin John is actually real? And you're like, well, we see each other every week and we text and talk on the phone, and John, I don't know, like I've got a relationship with God. This is not, it's not religion, and this is not a religious podcast. That I am certainly somebody who is full of faith, and if you can take a bit of my faith and and hopefully if you're interested and you want to know more about what on earth does Bonnie believe, or what is her Christianity, stuff like that, maybe I'll make a whole video on my faith and and just how God's what he's done in my life, and why I believe it's awesome to have a relationship with Jesus. And we'll definitely go there. But I'm just interested to see how this podcast unfolds, and the way that I know whatever I do, that God, he's kind of always with me. So in business, God's going to be there, and this podcast, God's going to be here too. So let's say, look, it'd be awesome if something like really supernatural and exciting and crazy happens for you while you listen to this podcast. That's definitely, my prayer. I've had friends my whole life. Some have, since I've been very young, and I was a really zealous Christian, probably like in my late teens, and probably quite full on. I've kind of calmed down from being annoying, maybe. I had a friend now, I just don't want to hear anymore. I don't want you to talk about God anymore. And I'm like, well, maybe this is a podcast for you if you don't want to hear her talk about God, because, I definitely love him quite a lot, and I wouldn't want to do life without God. Welcome to the Spark Joy podcast. I'm your host, Bonnie Brown, and today we are getting deep into the episodes here, so I'm very excited, and I'm actually trying out a new studio. So it's kind of bizarre, actually, because I'm sitting down in my old neighborhood, and if I just kind of put my head to the right, bedroom, I can actually see my house off on the hill where I lived. I was up on that hill for since 2003 to 2022. So it's a long time. I remember hearing this, it's actually, a Christian guy said this to me, said, you've been around this mountain long enough. And I kind of lived up on a mountain. But sometimes you can just go around and around the mountain. Sometimes it's time just to cut ties and move on, and to move into something new and different that you've never, like, go into the unfamiliar, go into the unknown. The Spark Joy is all about like sparking a new joy like if you've lost your spark or like sparking something in your heart, something afresh. What I'm working on at the moment is definitely about taking what's life trained you in, what's life trained you in at best, and then taking an element of that and using it to create something to help somebody who's behind you struggling with the same thing, or not necessarily struggling, but you're going to take what you've learnt and you're going to package it up and give it to them so that they can, experience what you do. You're going to bring them on the journey with you. So sometimes it's quite hard to, and this is what I found, is that, we get these fixed identities about who we are and what we've done, where do we live, and if you can shake out of your old kind of your fixed identity about who you think you are, you earn X amount of money and you live in this neighborhood and you've done this for a job and maybe, my career, I'm a Tyler or whatever it is, you have this fixed way of being because it's fixed because it's kind of like the identity you think when you look through the lens of your own life and you see yourself, through some of those aspects, how much money you make and what you do for a job and who you're married to and where you live and all of those things. And all of that can change for the better. So, Benjamin Hardy, he is a psychologist, a behavioral kind of psychologist, and his work's really interesting. But, he says that you almost need to forget about who you are right now, that you, who you are today is almost like irrelevant, and if you want to actually create those, changes, those leaps in your own life to be able to move forward and also in your business. I just wanted to talk about actually a bit about coaching. And so what is professional coaching? It's a process of creating change. And so I love the word potential if you look at it in Latin. So potus means ability or able, and esse, which is the Latin part of potential, the last bit is essence. So it's your ability and your essence together, and that's your potential. And so that's been something that I've been wrestling with over the last, 5 years. So, which is, to no longer kind of stay on the same path and do what I've always done, and stay in the familiar, just live the status quo, but I've gone off the beaten track, so to speak, so that I could wrestle with my potential and wrestle, and when I say wrestle, it's like also, wrestling with God, that, the fullness, of being all of who I am, that would come forth because, part of my, my life, I think, and what life's training it is that I'm actually like I'm like a signpost or a billboard. It's what some of the things that I've walked through that I can actually now, help a lot of other people be able to like get unlocked and unlock their potential and, step into a brand new way of life. So the important thing about potential is that it is from a Latin word, which is ability or able, what you're able to do, and your essence. So what is already essentially, you. And that's why this podcast is called about returning to your essence, returning to your essential, truth, so to speak. And so, unfortunately, to be loved, in this world, I think there's a lot of allowances made, and people will do, all kinds of things so they can be loved or accepted. Even, I think in the line of work that what will people do to get money, that's actually far from their potential and from their truth and who they actually are. And what are the lies, that they believe or that, I've shared before, I believe that you could not have a job for 2 weeks and that would, kind of be cooked after that, actually or something that I would, need to have a job. All of these, everything that you believe right now, all of it can be challenged. A lot of it's just kind of made up. And and you can change it. Yeah. So when you get down to your potential, you get to really see what's going on. It's about being all of who we are. And that's really exciting. If you can bring forth all of who you are and use that to be able to help other people in business, and taking some of your life story, starting your what life's trained you at, those trainings, and you only need one, and then creating a product, creating something which other people can benefit from. There's so much power and oil on your what life's trained you at. I don't want to say story because you can ask anyone about their story. You can get very caught up in your story. So, I just want to be careful using that word. But I think what life's trained you at, and thinking about some of those key skills. All of who you are, that's true wholeness. Some of the things that I've had to come to understand is to be all of who I am means that I probably suffer rejection, because when you're all of who you are, you're probably going to be quite offensive, or some people not going to like you being all of who you are. And I know I experienced that with a friendship, a few years back, as I started to step out and create content on mine. And, I sensed her dissatisfaction, with me for whatever reasons. It could be very confronting if people, friends, or if you've ever been in the situation when you try and make a change, or perhaps you're, so to speak, you're being a tall poppy and rising up past where, your usual position, or, how people see you, especially family, can be brutal. They want to see you how they've always seen you, and to see you in a different light, the new identity, can be very confronting. And some people don't know how to reconcile it. It's basically like shifting sand or ground, it changes the landscape, of how they intersect and kind of interact with you when your identity goes through this shift. And that's certainly something that, I'm taking full ownership of, actually, my identity, as a businesswoman, and as somebody who is a speaker and a creator, and also a leader, and that I'm that new identity that I just think is so powerful. So get to the core. What do you know? Or what do you not know that could be holding you back? And I think the things that we don't know that are holding us back, that is definitely why you absolutely must go outside of your current circle. If all the people you ever hang out with are people you agree with and are in your same culture, speaking your same language, you're probably not going to grow that much. You must go slightly outside of it, and it's healthy to be around people who have a different point of view or a different worldview and then get in those environments. I'm not saying that you're going to change your worldview or your beliefs or anything. I mean, as you know, I'm a believer that I've been in many environments where people did not have my beliefs, and learned to hold myself in those places. And I think it's healthy to understand how other people think, and how, and kind of reconcile that with, what I know that is true. So when you tap into all that you are, into your creative being, into your fullness of, everything that's inside of you, and living in that level of kind of confidence and freedom, I just think so many people are held back from being able to step into that level of, imagination, and being able to just think outside of the box. And if if you've been doing the same thing for 10 years or 5 years, you're probably in that box, and you're definitely not accessing, the fullness of your imagination and your potential. And so if you can allow yourself to be able to think beyond of like where you currently are, and, your identity, your status, all of that, and think, what could my potential be? What could be the fullness of that? And reviewing what life's trained you at. My specialty is definitely stepping people up into new seasons, into new realms. Hi, this is the Spark Joy podcast, and I'm your host, Bonnie Brown. And it's great that you're here joining with me. And so this is, this has been a dream for a long time to release my voice and so that I can talk to you and be able to share what's on my heart. And, I really believe that, like, as I speak and as we go through, these episodes, that that you'll be excited and that there'll be some little nuggets of gold that I will speak that might spark a new idea. It might spark a fresh love. It might spark a new life. It could spark travel. It could spark all kinds of things that, that you'll be able to step into the most joyful and full kind of existence and living and being able to tap into that level of joy despite, your circumstances, what's going on in your life, but that there'll be an elevation as you listen to this podcast where you'll be able to, come up a bit higher, so to speak, in terms of being able to see differently from a fresh perspective. What I'm going to be offering is tools and strategies that, through these episodes that we are going to get to know each other really well. And, please do reach out to me on social media. I'd love to know who's listening, what's resonating, what your thoughts are. I'm definitely being vulnerable. And I didn't want to start a Christian podcast just for Christians, because that's probably pretty boring, really. But, I want this to be for all people. And so hopefully you get something out of it. I have many friends from all over the world, and I'm hoping to have many more. As this community grows, we will be doing a group dinner in Sydney, so before the end of the year. So I'd love you to be involved with that. So please just direct message me if you're like, I need to be at that dinner. I want to meet Bonnie. Let's do that. And then I'm working on some material for the Spark Joy School, which will be, there's going to be a whole lot cooking in the school, cooking in terms of like cooking out something new in your life, basically bringing together all those ingredients from your history and from your vocation and your calling. Kind of, we're going to marry it all together so that you can go forward with something new in your life, with some new projects, perhaps. And I'm going to be giving some direction and some strategy, tools, and insights about how you can take, everything that you already know, and you don't need to go and learn something new because you're already a wealth of knowledge. I'm definitely interested in success and what that means to you personally. And, and I'll be sharing what it means to me. I'm interested in fun and freedom. And so I think, freedom is about having choice and, it's about not living stingy and being able to live in abundance of having, choice and time and relationships and having, access to everything that your heart would need, that your life would need, and your business would need. Having choice and the ability to be generous, to be abundant, and I'm a very abundant type of person. Like, I love just generosity, and I love, just living in a way which is kind of like there's like no red light, like let's go with a green light. Should we go to the Gold Coast tomorrow? Yes, we should go. Let's all go to the Gold Coast. All right, I'll meet you there in the morning at 6 a.m. So I'm being silly, but no, I have done that. Actually, I was at a cafe with my daughter, and then I was like, there's a conference happening in Australia tomorrow. And she's like, we should go. And I was like, okay. And there was a flight leaving like in about 2 hours. So we just went home, got our bags, and we caught the flight. So, I love just that spontaneity, and to have that level of spontaneity, you need time, you need resources, you need the abundant kind of generous mindset where, you're not scrimping or saving or things are not tight, but that you've got that space in your life to be able to make these, to be able to move through your life with some kind of, autonomy and energy and fun. So if I'm definitely, I do like some discipline and routines and all of those, like I'm into habits, and I definitely, I love health and fitness, and I weight train and work out and run and all of those things. So I love to have freedom. So Spark Joy podcast there's probably going to be quite a bit of laughing. And I do intend down track to bring on some guests. But, I just think why we don't know each other that well yet. And so maybe we'll just hang out a bit. You are my guests, my audience. And so let's get to know each other a bit better. And once we get to know each other, then I can invite on some, different people who I think will be a benefit. And, and this is going to take shape into something very fast, the Spark Joy podcast. So thankful that you can be here. And today's topic is about how to trust your life purpose, how to trust in a big purpose and how to move forward into that. So for me to be able to realize my life purpose, I've had to let go of everything actually, and been through divorce. My mum died of cancer, and I've also been fired from jobs, made redundant, and also left careers, and and then I've gone through breakups. I've gone through all of those pinnacle life events that you could think of, and some of it all happened in 2018. And so that really was a catalyst for me to kind of hit rock bottom, really, in terms of if you think of a life hiccup, all of mine happened, in 2018, one after another. And so it wasn't just a life hiccup, it was like a life volcano going off. And, but like I've said, my relationship with God, he was incredibly faithful to me during that kind of season, and through this process that I've been on, this unraveling of my my life that I constructed, that's like mounted down in the life volcano. And what's been left has been the remnants of what could be my purpose, what has been the purpose, and all of this pain and everything that I've gone through. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've gone through some things that haven't worked out so well, and in the midst of it, what is my purpose? And my purpose is, to be someone who ignites the lights, and to be creative, and to come and help, really inspire other people, I think is something that's definitely always been, on my life. So, yes, I'm unraveling my purpose within this podcast. This is my purpose: communicate, to share, to bring tools and insights to people's lives. It's interesting. So my birthday, if you want to send me a birthday present, be happily received. My birthday is on the 18th of August. The Chinese, I've met Chinese before when it's been real estate, and I've got Chinese friends. And when I tell them my birthday, because it was 18th of August, 1980, so 1880, and the Chinese always say, "Oh, you're very lucky." They get very excited when they see all my eights, when I was born. And so in scripture, my life verse is that God's given me power to create wealth. And so I think there's something about creativity and creating things of benefit for other people that they would value, and I've created value in my life, previously through different aspects of my purpose, like my creativity outworking in the visual area of photography and creating visual art with that. And then, I brought that through my career in property and then advertising. I've got all these different things that I've done, and I'm sure your work's similar. And so my purpose has been constantly outworking during all of those different seasons and all the different endeavors that I've done. So your purpose never switches off. So even when I went through my life volcano, so to speak, where everything melted and fell away and got stripped away in 2018. And I was just Bonnie. And people say, "What do you do?" I travel and I walk and I shop and I work out, but what do I do? In terms of people, when you think of like LinkedIn, and people always want to, quickly put a label or a title or something over your head or a badge about who you are and what you do. Well, none of that was relevant to me and hasn't been relevant to me at all. And so I've been in this really interesting sort of time, yes, for a while. And that's why I'm coming forward now to, you know, speak about some of my experiences and give you hope that if you're in a transition and you're wondering what on earth is my purpose, I've been through all these different things and I now find myself at point Z and it feels like there's not another letter that comes past that actually you're about to go back to A and it's a brand new beginning and you're about to start something brand new. And that's why you're listening to this podcast because, the past is gone and today is a brand new day. And this is exciting because I'm starting something brand new. And the thing when you start something new and it's connected to your purpose is that there'll be a momentum behind it. So it's going to carry me forward. So this is actually very easy for me to do this. I don't have a script or anything. I'm just talking because it's all inside of me. I've been marinating, on this for a long time. And so it's just now basically like turning on a tap and all the words will just come out. And I actually trust that as all my words come out, that some of them are going to, wherever you are listening to this, that you would be encouraged that it's okay. If right now everything, you're in a transition season, maybe something, looks different to how it used to look. Parents, maybe they're unwell or dying, go through transition, children at different stages, getting married, getting unmarried. I mean, there's just so many different things that go on in our lives. And I think that's one of the interesting things with my career. So, I started off in photography, in the visual arts, and, it was people getting married, right? And then when I ended up in photography, in real estate, it's people getting unmarried because of selling properties, or sometimes people were getting married. But, life continues on. And but if we can distill down some of your purpose and identify the most potent thing about, your whole life training that you've had so far, and what is that one thing that is incredibly valuable because inside and out, you've walked it. And you're going to take that one thing that deep down and I'm going to invite you into the Smart Joy School to develop that into something of substance that has a financial benefit that becomes a business. And we're not going to, dress it up too fanciful right now, but it could be a side hustle for you. Or I hate that word hustle, but, it could be something that you've done before, but I'm inviting you in to take that thing that you know really well and going to create something of substance out of it that could benefit other people. And so the Spark Joy podcast is in partnership with Spark Joy School. So Spark Joy School is really, the thrust of it is to take people who take their purpose, take people out from their current season and send them back out into the marketplace, into the business, into online, teaching the strategies and tools that you would need to make a success with what you already know. So I'm not going to be teaching you new, it's not like you're going to come and I'm going to teach you all of this new content. The content is on the inside of you. We're going to extract it out of you, which is your purpose and your everything that you already know. And it's going to get repackaged down into something of substance that you could sell. And how do I know that this could work? It's a $1 billion industry. It is, online learning, I think, is the way we receive knowledge and information is changing. and anybody can become an educator. And so, yeah, the Spark Joy podcast is going to be informative, it's going to be educative, and it's also going to be full of revelation, because you get me and you also get God, because, I love God. So, and that doesn't matter if maybe you don't believe in God, but he'll be here too. So the Spark Joy podcast, you get 2 for 1. And I'm your host, Bonnie Brown and God. I might change my name at some point, but I'll let you know. That's my kind of divorce name, Brown, but I haven't come up with anything better. So at the moment, I'm Bonnie Brown from the Spark Joy podcast. And when you go and try something that you've never done before, yes, it's going to feel probably damn uncomfortable, like really outside of your level of comfort. And that's good. You're not doing something that you're uncomfortable. You're probably living a stagnant life. Sometimes people get angry when I say stuff like this. Only problem with this podcast is that I'm sitting down, and I would love to be able to dance, but it's very hard when you're sitting down like this. Okay. So what I've got here is, I've just noticed this book, actually, Gucci, The Making of Gucci. It looks like a really cool book. And so this podcast is the making of the Spark Joy podcast. And this podcast is the making of you. It's the making of your purpose, about bringing forth like your coolness, your essence, your fullness, your identity, like everything that has never seen the light of day. We're going to bring those things forth through this podcast, through this community. So please make sure that you subscribe. In the show notes, I'm going to be dropping a little wee freebie, which you can, there's noise, which you can download and work through if you like that kind of thing, or if you don't want to do homework, just listen to it. And I look forward to being with you next week. My plan is to drop these weekly, and please give me feedback, because, hopefully this will give you the permission to go and live your life purpose, the permission to actually stop a minute and be like, I'm so busy, I don't know what my life purpose is. Well, it's a good question to ask, and just, there's no point being on the wrong path if there's a better path that you could be on. Yeah, this is what we're going to uncover. I'm going to unpack. Along the way, I think there's going to be a few businesses that are going to spring from this, from my listeners who are going to come through the Spark Joy School. So can't wait to meet you guys. Can't wait to see who's going to enroll and, come and do that with me. Will be good. Let me lead you, be your guide, be your champion of dreams. Yeah, bring that level of encouragement to actually, launch a brand new international career. That's the plan. Bye, guys. I love you. Yep. Me in your ears every week on the step, which is to, sit down in the seat, put the lights on, and get this microphone in front of my face and actually talk to you, that my life purpose will unfold, and it's to the benefit of you. Because, when I do what I'm meant to be doing, then you can do what you're meant to be doing. And, you can start building out some of those dreams.